When you lose the one you love, you think your world has ended. You think your world will be the waste of life without them in it. You feel there's no way to go on. Life is just a sad, sad song. But love is bigger than a song. The end is not the end at all. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through. It's not ours to be taken. It's just a thing we get to do. Life goes on, and when it's gone, it lives in someone new. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through. It's not ours to be taken. It's a thing we get to do. Life goes on, and when it's gone, it builds in someone new. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through. It's not something you get over, but it's something you get through.
True love will never fade. 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 I wonder if there's no forever, no walking hand in hand down a yellow brick road to Never Never Land. These days I get to where I'm going, make it there eventually. Follow the trail of breadcrumbs to where I'm meant to be, to where I'm meant to be. I don't know what brought you to me, that was up to you. There's so many come to see me who want their own tattoo. I fixed a needle in the holder, laid my hand upon your spine, there upon your shoulder. I drew the picture as your sign. When I think about us, I see the picture that we made, the picture to my head. True love won't ever fade. True love will never fade. True love will never fade. True love will. I work the rowdies and day tripper. Now and then I think of you. Any which way we're all shuffled forward in the queue. They like to move my operation. They like to get me off the pew. And I dream I'm on a steamer pulling out. When I think about us, I see the picture that we made. Picture to remind. True love will never fade. 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 True love will never fade.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Kaya Hartwood. I'm the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Bryan, and I serve this community. And the family has asked me to help this morning as we celebrate Helene's amazing life. Those of y'all who are standing in the back, there's some seats here in the front if you want to come on down and be comfortable. We'd love for you to be comfortable. That you all are here is a testament to how amazing her life was. So we've come together in memory and in love. The service reminds us that of a life that mattered, of love that was shared, and of the ways a presence continues in stories, in influence, and we carry her in our hearts. As we hold this service, may it hold our grief with tenderness, our gratitude with warmth, and our gathering with quiet peace. We've come together today to remember, to grieve, and to give thanks for a life extremely well lived. Each of us arrives carrying our own memories, our own love, and our own questions. All of that is welcome here. This is a time to honor Helene's, to speak her name and tell stories of how she mattered to all of us, and to sit with sorrow and with gratitude, and to find comfort in each other's presence. May this time together be shaped by honesty, by compassion, and by the deep human need to remember and be remembered. And I think we've got a reading.
This is a poem called Thermopyle by C.P. Cavafy. Honor to those who in the life they lead define and guard a Thermopyle, never betraying what is right, consistent and just and all they do, but showing pity also and compassion, generous when they are rich and when they are poor, still generous in small ways, still helping as much as they can, always speaking the truth, yet without hating those who lie. And even more honor is due to them when they foresee, as many do foresee, that in the end, Ephialtes will make his appearance, that the Medes will break through after all.
And now we're going to hear from Amelia.
I'm humbled that Michael, Agella, and Athena asked me to share a Helene vignette today. My name is Emilia Cargill, and I grew up in Stanwood, Washington. Mr. Bemis's middle school math class is where I remember meeting Helena. That's what sticks with me about when Helena and I met. I met her that first day, and she was Helena Andrews, and I was Emilia Cargill. But not long after, we were Lena and Meenam, sisters, best friends. The Diesel Rabbit, trips to Seattle in a tan Volkswagen Diesel Rabbit, where Helena and I always tried to make Kirsten sit in the middle because she was the youngest. We'd go to Seattle to watch movies that I always thought were avant-garde at the Varsity and Seven Gables Theater in Seattle. And that's how I remember Helena, avant-garde and brilliant. We were both seamstresses, and in our freshman year in high school, we volunteered to make a class flag. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, it ended up being kind of this complicated quilt applique. We had that crazy Stanwood Spartan thing that had to be cut out, but leave it to Helena. Always the planner, the organizer, about details and measurements, things I don't do so well at. We had a projector. We did a projection to sketch out the Stanwood Spartan. We then started stitching, zigzagging around all the numbers and letters, and it came out really good. Thanks to Helena and her organization, details, it was blue ribbon worthy. And although I feel like I'm leaving out all the important parts, I'm going to close with music. Music's always been important to Helena. Mr. Colmar's middle school music class. Helena played the flute, I played the clarinet. Helena was often first chair, always in the first row, and that was important. Me, I was lucky to be in the last seat of the first row. But music was important to Helena. The song I first remember Helena kind of forcing me to go and buy an album, a cassette of, was the Talking Heads. It was because she loved the song at the time, this is the mid-'80s, And She Was by the Talking Heads. I hadn't thought about that song for a long time, probably over a decade. Early January, I was driving around Las Vegas and it came on my radio. And I had this moment of instant clarity, this perfect recall of cruising around Seattle, Washington in high school in Helena's red 1984 Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. We thought we were pretty cool, and we're listening to the Talking Heads. And so this song is now stuck on a loop in my head. It's all I think about now. And I'm going to share a little bit cribbed from David Byrne of the Talking Heads. The world was moving, and she was right there with it, and she was floating above it, and she was extraordinary.
Pam?
Helene's first cousin. Our dads were brothers. We grew up near each other in Washington, so Helene has always been a steady presence in my life. Over these past weeks, I've been picking up my memories of Helena, dusting them off, and considering what I want to share with you all. How to capture the essence of a relationship spanning nearly 6 decades. How to celebrate a life so rich, a person so loving, strong, smart, reliable, funny, sweet. Particularly when you know that if the tables were turned and she was speaking about one of us, she would say just the right thing with the right tone and with humor. She might say a 4-letter word and everyone would nod and say, "That's exactly right." She captured that so well. She saw me and she knew me and she cared about me. She loved me. What a gift to be loved by Helena. I imagine we will hear many stories of the ferocity of her love and caring as we celebrate her life together. The best way I can describe it is this. I'm a mom and I have a son. Harley and I asked Helena and Michael to take care of him if something should happen to both of us. I trusted her to care for my only child in my absence, which fortunately was never needed. Eventually, she did get a chance to take care of him when he was in college and needed a research experience to complete his biology major. I connected Max with Helena, and you can imagine what happened next. She took him into her lab where he completed his requirement. But that's not all she did. She also hired him and paid him. She took him into her home and made him one of her family. She gave him a car to drive. And she invited him into the family of her lab, a culture of warmth and support that Helena built and fostered. It ended up being so much more than a summer research experience. I'm grateful for the relationships that were built that summer that connected Max with Helena, Michael, Agella, and Athena. Distant Texas cousins no more. She even worked with Max to figure out how to manage our old cat's constipation problem. Truly a woman of varied talents. I'm going to try to tell another story without going too long. Years ago, most of my cousins had a falling out with my dad for understandable reasons. In the year after Helena was diagnosed, my dad also got cancer. He hated being sick and he had medical anxiety. When he was facing chemotherapy, Helena came to his house and showed him her port. She explained everything about the chemo he was going to receive and all the tips and tricks to get through it with less side effects. She helped to ease his anxiety and gave him agency over what he was about to face. Most importantly, she forgave him and showed him love and compassion. He was so grateful. But of course, that's what she did, because that is who she was. Helena didn't speak of her death. She wanted to live, and that was not how she was going to spend her time. She fought for every minute she could share with us, with Michael, with her girls. I'm so grateful for the time we had and the words that went without saying, because they were understood. In closing, I'd like to read you part of a poem that my father wrote. I would speak of death. I would weep it, speak it in teardrops. If only I could, for if I could also sing, dance, laugh, and hold your life. I could smile how precious your life is to me. I could tell you how much your presence means. I would speak of death to you and mean of joy and love and life.
James?
See if I can get the AV to work here without Athena coming up and coaching me on it. Amelia ended with a song. I'm going to start with a song. Don't be stiff. You're just sitting there. Come on, a little bit. All right. Hi, H. I know you're squirming right now watching that. My name is James Wyatt, and there's an abject danger in being modestly articulate and having a background in improv comedy, which is at my wedding, after hearing my vows, my graduate school mentor and my undergraduate mentor were sitting together and they agreed. They wanted me to speak at their funerals, to deliver eulogies. And then I had the privilege and honor and awful task of doing that for my graduate school mentor in 2014. And I'm hoping that my undergrad mentor has since forgotten about that. But then when Michael asked me to come and honor Helene here, of course, I had to say yes. But I think he described me as one of her oldest college friends. And the word oldest really kind of rubbed me the wrong ways. But Michael, I'll forgive you that. I'd like to share some memories of Helene from our first week in college, some overlapping time in Boston, a lot of trips to College Station, and her recent battle. So in our very first day at Brown, Helene and I were next door neighbors, and I quickly learned that she was from 3,000 miles away and I was from 2,000 miles away. So we bonded as strangers in a very strange land. Eventually, I was infected with the Providence accent, and Helene remained largely immune to it. She loved that song, Take On Me, that I just played there from Aha. And I think she was kind of smitten by the lead singer and his big hair a little bit as well. And it was hard to imagine how she actually acquired a vision of him with his big hair growing up in Stanwood without a TV. But apparently she snuck to the neighbors to watch at various points. And in college, she made up for it. And we had an afternoon movie study breaks that became kind of a ritual. Helene, Anna, Lisa, Renee, and myself. Could I have the first picture there? Is that up now? That's Helene and Anna. Yeah, Anna's watching in today. Hey, how are you? So you can see Helene had the big hair back then, bigger hair than more recently, kind of like that lead singer of Aha. I keep saying Aha. If you're one of the younger people in the audience, you can ask your best friend YouTube to look that up for you. Okay. So in college, you may not have known this, Helene was frequently seen chugging with a bottle of Melanta and had this very sensitive stomach. And who knew that she would go on to study this foodborne illness that could cause days of vomiting. I don't think it was necessarily from that, but maybe it had some role. And I'm shocked that both Helene and I did not get foodborne poisoning the year after we graduated, because we were both stuck in Providence for Thanksgiving, and I completely forgot to take the turkey out of the freezer. So we had to thaw that sucker and barely cooked it. Somehow managed not to get sick. It was a horrible a horrible snowstorm. It was very cold. Couldn't really get around. So I went into the basement of my apartment building, found this very nasty old furniture that was all moldy, broke it up, threw it in the fireplace, and we had a very nice fire and some horribly probably undercooked turkey. But those are the things that you do in college and afterward. Honoring Helene's subsequent research, I did later in life have a bout of salmonella, and it was definitely worthy of study. Could I have this picture number 2? The contract there. So around this time, a couple of months after graduating, I know the kids now in the world call this a gap year, right? If you take a little time between high school and college, or between college and life beyond. Back then, we did not call it a gap year. We called it just being scared shitless, not knowing what you were going to do with your life and trying to figure out what to do. So she kept on going on. Well, I kind of want to do this. I kind of want to do this. And I said, oh, for the love of God, just sign this thing. So that was the contract, that she would go on to pursue graduate school in biology. And of course, overachiever, she couldn't stop at that. She had to go on and get a D.V.M. and the Ph.D. and be a full professor. So, by the way, Google tells me this morning when I was looking this up that on that date, November 11th, 1989, that was 2 days after the wall came down and bulldozers were ripping away the Berlin Wall at that time. And exactly 100 years before this date, so November 11th, 1889, was the day that Washington became the 42nd state. So 3 important things happened on November 11th. Now, moving on to Boston quickly here. In our days in Boston, Helene had the coolest but tiniest apartment right at the top of Beacon Hill, right next to the State House. Amazing location, tiny place. I cannot believe that she and Michael managed to live together in that tiny space that Michael reminded me last night was about 500 square feet, which, if you know what 500 square feet, it's approximately the size of the bed of one of the extremely large pickup trucks that seems to roam the streets of College Station at 3 o'clock loudly when you're trying to sleep in the hotel. But that's my little rant for the night. It's been said that the easiest way to test a relationship is to get into a car and drive across country together and see if you'll survive. So I think Michael and Helene survived that test, living together, cohabitating in a 500 square foot apartment. They passed that test extremely well. And in fact, they're such a couple that in my email folder where I file all my emails, the email folder for Helena is not Helena, it just says Helena Michael, because that's how I thought of both of them. That's the inseparability. But you could expand that just a little bit. I was one of the strays that became kind of a perennial third wheel, especially in Boston. And Helena and Michael and I would have wonderful margaritas and horrible Mexican food on Boylston there, or we'd go for shawarma. And there were these times we would spend, and times that later when they moved to Back Bay area on St. Patolph, and I was nearby, we would see each other there. Could I get the third picture? This is their tribute to history. I didn't realize at the time that it really is kind of a recreation of American Gothic. Anyway, so that's one of the rare pictures you'll find of Helena, either not with family or not working. Anyway, but she was somehow bitten by this bug of community gardening. Anyway, so in College Station briefly, my third wheel behavior continued, and I came down here for 3 years in a row, I think right after they'd moved here, and spent 3 consecutive Thanksgivings with them. And these two really, Michael and Helena, had this knack for taking in strays. So talk about strangers in a strange land. You've got me coming from a city of 9 million people. You've got the guy from Greece, and you've got the Pacific Northwesterner, all in the middle of the, I don't know what you call this, mid-central, southern, semi-desert Texas. I don't know. And I don't mean that as an insult. I spent plenty of years in Tucson, so I get the terrain. But I have vague memories of Kirsten and I wedging Agella's feet into roller skates and going to a nearby playground. And all 3 of us made it back. And they didn't disown me at that point. But at one point, to thank them for their hospitality, I bought them a VCR. Sorry, Ursula, but she really did like TV at some point. And they got nicknamed, I believe, at some point, the James Wyatt Home Theater. That's what Michael would call it. Anyway, the last, I want to close with just talking about the last battle here. I want to show you my socks. I don't know if you've ever seen socks at a memorial service before. Can you see these? These are my Roy Kent socks. Any Ted Lasso fans out there? Yeah, so explain it to the people next to you. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, just imagine a hapless Midwesterner over in the UK trying to coach soccer when he's a football coach and knows nothing about soccer. And there's this incredibly irreverent, loud, boisterous, almost has-been senior soccer star who has this love affair with the word fuck. And that became, and I'm testing the all faiths nature of this chapel today by doing that. I warned Michael and Ursula last night that I would be swearing in this place of worship, but at the same time, that became one of Helena's morals, and one of her, part of her fiber of her being was the last years here was fuck cancer. Cancer is an atrocity. It deserves to be treated that way and spoken of in terms like that. It's okay. And she was also called by her dearest of friends and her admirers, she was called a bad bitch. And that was who she was, that unbelievable attitude and strength. She was, as we're in a place of all faiths, she was someone who had great faith. She had great faith in her friends, in her family, in science, and ultimately great faith in herself. And she was fearless, she was tireless, she was a researcher, a professor, unabashedly overeducated, a wife, a partner, an incredibly proud mama, and a lifelong friend to many. So, Helena, you will live on in Michael and Agella and Athena, and in the Let's Win Pancreatic Society. And she lives on in the memory of the strays, the countless strays that she took in over time, and the countless lives that she touched and will hopefully continue to touch. Thanks. Thanks, Michael.
Fairness?
Hi to everybody. I have thought a lot about Helena, and I think She will never want me to be serious, even under these circumstances. Because Helena, for me, is present, her unstoppable laugh during our summer dinners around souvlakia, but also during our phone calls throughout the year. Helena is a smiling face for me, full of plans for the future, for the Greek summer, for everything in her life. I want to share something with you. I never saw a different Helena because of her illness. Always when I met her during her summer visits, I had a stress how she will be. She was the same as the first time that I have met her with Michael. The same smiling eyes. Always full of love for life, for Michael, love for Agella and Athena. You know, all these years I saw Helena stress only 2 times. In Agella's baptism ceremony and before her wedding. When we had Agella's baptism, which I am her godfather, Michael and myself decided to do it midsummer, about 12 o'clock with a lot of heat. And Helena was stressed because Agella was crying non-stop during all the ceremony, believing that she will leave a problem to Agella. The other time that I saw her, and this is past after we had dinner in the taverna, the other time that she was very stressed because she was a control freak in many ways, was when I had to drive her to the wedding ceremony. Michael told me that she's very nervous, so we start laughing in the car for 45 minutes. And everything went well. You know, that was my relationship with Helena. She was always serious, and I was always the laughing guy. I would say that about Helena's determination that has helped her a lot of her life. I will tell you a story that it's not known. When her beloved Michael had to join the army for a rather long period of time, Helena kept telling me that she knows that there is a law that permits a very shorter period to be served. I didn't know about it. Helena talked to the US Embassy, to the Ministry of Defense, to everybody. She found the law, and finally, Michael did a much shorter period in the army. This was Helena. When she was determined, she was reaching to her target. Helena is my hero. She was my living hero. She is my hero for dreaming, for fighting, for winning, for losing. But mainly because after all this fighting and the pain, her eyes had the same smile. I will tell you a secret. Helena during summer will be somewhere in the Aegean between Chios and Syros, always thinking about if it is okay to have a second souvlaki. I love her. I know that I use present tense because Helena is a true human in every aspect in this more and more fake world. Helena is alive in my thoughts next to my father, and this is very important for me. Thank you.
Raquel?
So wonderful to see this packed room for Helene. My name is Raquel Citrin. I'm a faculty member in the College of Medicine and a close friend of the Polymenis family. When my husband, Hubie, and I relocated here from North Carolina in 2009, the Polymenises were among the first people we met. They lived just down the street from us, and our families quickly started to spend a lot of time together, lots of dinners at each other's houses, carving pumpkins on Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas dinners. We had 2 young daughters. Isabel was our oldest, 7, and Ollie was 4. And they loved hanging out with the older girls, Athena and Akela. From the beginning, Helene stood out. She was already running an incredibly successful lab, successful with her grants, her publications, lots of trainees who really adored and looked up to her. And I looked up to her and admired her. Over the years, Helene and I bonded over many things, including our deeply held belief in the power of retail therapy. When life was stressful and we need a little pick-me-up, we fully supported each other's splurges on, a great pair of shoes, a cute dress, the perfect bag. And importantly, we agreed that our husbands did not need to know all the details. We got worked up and outraged over the same things. But Helene always channeled that outrage into action. She worked relentlessly to change what she saw needed changing. She always spoke up. She spoke truth to power. And if she believed she could make a difference, she was not one to stay silent. She was not one to stay in her lane. But our strongest bond grew over the really big things, especially putting family first. Less than a year after we moved here, Isabel was diagnosed with an inoperable and deadly brain cancer. We felt utterly unmoored. We had made friends here, but our deepest ties were still in North Carolina, and we briefly considered moving back there for our support system. And ultimately, we stayed because uprooting the kids again, even to go home, felt too disruptive for all of us. In those first weeks, people often didn't know what to do or say. But Helene seemed to know one simple thing, that she needed to show up. She loved both of our girls so much, and her mama bear instincts really came out. Helene, Athena, and Agela joined us on our last family vacation with Isabel in Costa Rica, and that was an incredibly special time. She helped plan Isabel's last birthday celebration, her 8th. And Helene was the one who went out of her way to make sure that Isabel got that robot puppy that she so wanted. When Isabel became bedridden, her body failing her while her mind stayed fully present, Helene's instinct to protect and support only grew stronger. She instinctively understood that Hubie and I needed to spend every moment with Isabel, and that Ollie needed care and some sense of a normal life. When others stayed away, worried about intruding, Helene did not. She came. She came every day. She did the dishes. She straightened up. She ran errands. She helped with Ollie. Through all of this, Helene showed me what it means to be a true friend and how to really take care of the people you love. And when it was her and her family's turn to need help and support, I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had to do for them because Helene had shown me. Isabel died just 10 months after her diagnosis, and we had her memorial service right here. Helene stood in this very spot and spoke about what Isabel meant to her and her family. She read from The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. It's a book that we used to help Ollie cope with the grief of losing her sister. In that book, a mother tells her children that people who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love, something that you cannot see with your eyes, but you can feel with your heart. Helena believed that. She lived that. She reminded us that love doesn't end because a life ends, and that the connections we build hold us together in the hardest moments. When the children ask how far that string can reach, their mother tells them that it can stretch anywhere, even to the places where we cannot follow. So although Helena is no longer here in body, she's still with us in the ties that she created and strengthened. The strings that connect her to each of us are so many that together they form a web of care and support that binds all of us. And through that web, we remain connected, not only to Helena, but to one another through our shared love for her.
Megan.
God brings people into our lives when we need them the most. For me, Helena was one of those people. In the fall of 2005, I was in grad school, and I was struggling with whether I could be a Ph.D. student and a mother at the same time. I was unhappy in the lab I was in. I guess you could call me a stray. And I had a conversation with Michael, who was on my committee at the time. He encouraged me to meet his wife, Helena, who was just starting up a lab, and I ultimately became her first graduate student and a member of the Blue Lab coat crew. Helena was intimately involved in the work, sitting at the bench, working beside me. My struggle was her struggle. My breakthrough was her breakthrough. And we celebrated everyone's accomplishments as they happened, as you can see with the cakes in the pictures. Helena was an example of grace and grit, and she taught me many lessons, and I thought I would share just a few. Number one was balance. Life is too short to choose between work and family. It is possible to have both and find fulfillment in both. She was a brilliant scientist, but her primary goal was to be a mother to her beautiful daughters. Perseverance, in lab and in life. She was never negative when science moved slowly. Rather, she would challenge me to find solutions and think outside the box. Be confident in your own ability. I can remember her telling me to stop writing passively as I was taught in my tech writing class. She would tell me, "You did it, claim it, own it." Get outside of your comfort zone. Helena encouraged me to share my work at many conferences, and I learned to speak with more confidence and think on my feet. My favorite conference experience was in Boston, her former stomping grounds. Helena and I roomed together, and I got to learn more about her experiences in grad school at Tufts. Meanwhile, she laughed at my giddiness about the history of the city. She really had a great laugh. I am so grateful for the time that I had with Helena and grateful that I got to run into her recently and give her another hug. When my family asked why I wanted to walk at graduation, she was my answer. I was so honored to be her first student, and I wanted to share that experience with her. I can't say she was ecstatic when I chose to go into teaching rather than stay in the lab and running a lab of my own, but she was supportive of my decision nevertheless. I know I would not be who I am today without Helena, and I always thank God for bringing her light, grace, confidence, and laughter into my life. Blue lab coats forever.
John?
It's an honor and a privilege to say a few thoughts about Helena that I have. My name is John Scari. I was a faculty colleague of Helena's for her whole academic career as a professor in our department in the College of Medicine. And I remember Helena the very first day that she joined our department. She was a postdoc in Andreas Boimler's lab, and it was very clear that she was extremely driven. She came into the space that Andreas and I shared and was like finding where every single thing was and how she could, connect it as quickly as she could. And it was great to see that enthusiasm. It was enthusiasm. It was like the love of science. She was so excited to get back into a research lab. She just finished her D.V.M. and she was so excited. And so it was easy for us to become fast friends, and we did. And her postdoc went very well. She published some great papers, made a lot of contacts, and it was time for her to go out and get a job. And we were fortunate enough to have a position open in our department and the good fortune and wisdom to hire her. And at that point, our relationship transitioned a little bit. I think I became an unofficial mentor of hers. We didn't have any formal mentor program at the time, but more or less it was us just getting together and talking and trying to figure out the best way to keep our labs going, or start, in her case, start a lab, in my case, kind of figure out how to run a lab better. And the fact of the matter was I was just a few years ahead of her and I was still learning. And when I think back on those days, the idea of me being her mentor is a little bit silly, in that I think that she was much better at communicating things that were important than I was to her. I learned a lot from her. She had a lot of wisdom in terms of how to navigate different situations and problems that all of us experience running a research group. And I think she had the really great combination of candor as well as care and compassion. And she really cared about everybody in the department, not just her own research lab. She cared about my group. She cared about all the groups in our department and frankly in our college and beyond. And so that was really, really something that I learned a lot from, and helped me a lot to get through some of the situations that I was going through. And we developed this mutual support and respect for each other that just came natural. It was like almost immediate when I met her. And we would celebrate each other's successes and would commiserate when things, were tough. And there were those days, but most of the time things went. Our conversations together were very were fun and uplifting. I had this, and when she was first starting out as a faculty, I thought, we're going to our society meeting, American Society for Microbiology, and I had this naive thought that, maybe I could introduce her to a few people. Particularly in my field, and so we went, and I found out that she knew everybody. I mean, everybody. She introduced me to a bunch of people. I didn't introduce her to anybody new that she didn't already know. And it was just because she loved science. She loved her work, and she loved people who love science. So it was just a perfect marriage. And she was able to establish some really amazing collaborations, and it transitioned into her research just growing and growing and growing, and her trajectory just kept growing, going up and up and up. And what followed from that were the accolades that she deserved. She was named a Presidential Impact Fellow. She was elected to the American Academy of Microbiology. One of the pictures is her there at the ceremony where they recognize new members, her pointing at her name there. And she was also recognized as a top alum for the College of Veterinary Medicine. And those awards meant a lot to her. They did, and she took great pride in them, as she should. But the one title that really meant the most to her was was that of mom. And she really, really loved her family. And she loved her girls, Agella and Athena, and she talked about them all the time and was very, very proud of the wonderful young women that they had become. I don't really have an amusing anecdote to share about Helena, which surprised me because when we got together, we laughed a lot. And as others have referred to, when you told her something amusing, you were rewarded by that joyous laugh. And when I think about Helena now, I think back to that. And it takes me back to some great memories I had with her. And just, it takes me back to these great memories I have of an amazing and wonderful friend who I will miss greatly.
Jessica? Sorry?
Hi. Thank you, Michael, for inviting me to speak today. It's truly an honor to be here and to help celebrate Helena's life. Helena was someone who was very easy to admire and much harder to fully describe. She was brilliant, accomplished, and deeply respected. But those words only captured the surface. What made Helena extraordinary wasn't just what she achieved, but how she was in the world. What stood out most to me about Helena was her clarity. In moments when conversations became complicated or emotionally charged, she had a remarkable ability to see straight to the heart of an issue. She could hold complexity without being overwhelmed by it. She named things honestly, thoughtfully, and with integrity. Not to dominate a conversation, but to steady it. Helena didn't speak to be heard. She spoke because what she had to say mattered. And when she spoke, people listened. Not out of obligation, but out of trust. She carried strength. She carried strength in a way that never felt performative. It wasn't loud or forceful. It was grounded, calm, and deeply reassuring. Being around Helena made other people feel steadier, clearer, and more capable. I want to share a moment that captures this for me. A few months before Helena died, when she was still feeling well-ish and her treatment seemed to be working remarkably well, she was clearly weaker, but always strong. Someone asked her whether she would consider running for chair of CPI. What struck me was not just that she was considering it, but why. She knew exactly what the role would demand. She knew what the toll it would take, and she knew what future treatment might mean for her physically and mentally. And yet she was still willing to step forward because she believed she would always be strong enough to make the right moral and ethical choices, and that those choices mattered. At the same time, I was struggling to find my footing, and Helena was the one person I could speak to with complete honesty. What she gave me in that moment was not judgment, but understanding. She respected that not all strength looks the same, and that not all impact needs to be visible to be real. She encouraged me to take the space I needed to regain clarity and strength, so that when I acted, I could do so with intention and integrity. That was Helena, deeply principled, but never rigid, courageous, but never reckless, strong, but always humane. I followed her advice, becoming more deliberate about where and how I could make a difference, and that strength came in no part from her. That is who Helene was. She didn't just lead by standing in front. She led by helping others stand more firmly in themselves. Her absence is felt profoundly. There is a quiet where her voice used to be. But her influence remains in the people she mentored, the colleagues she guided, and the standards she set through her example. Many of us are carrying pieces of Helene forward, whether we realize it or not. She showed us that excellence does not require hardness, that strength does not require cruelty, and that integrity is something you live every day, not something you claim. Helene mattered deeply. She still matters. And I am profoundly grateful to have known her. Thank you.
And Cindy?
Helena was a force.
Helena was very kind and very warm.
She was vivacious, energetic.
She was this highly accomplished researcher, but she had so many layers to her.
I think she was a really genuine person, a deep person, crazy smart. She's a good mom to her girls. She's a good friend to me, and she's funny. She's very, very funny.
Helena was also one of the most easygoing people that I knew. When I asked her how to pronounce her name, she said, I don't care. Helene, Helena. I'm still not sure if I ever said her name right.
She was someone who, despite her health challenges, was generous in sharing her time and her experience.
I've known Helena for over 25 years. I was also her physician as well as her friend. And I'm the one who diagnosed her pancreatic cancer. But she was never one of those why me people. It was just like, okay, how do we move forward?
She was probably the most aggressive self-advocate for anybody with cancer that I've really ever seen. And she translated that into recognizing that we need to do better for other patients.
She was very open about her illness, and that is what led us to engage with her through Let's Win.
She saw ways that we could be better, and things kind of took off from there.
She was an active, inspiring member of Let's Win's Patient Advisory Board, and then soon became a member of the board itself.
Even in the midst of her own battle, she made it a priority up until the very end to help the entire pancreatic cancer community.
I've never met a more determined human. She was so transparent about what she dealt with. She never stopped sharing her story.
She was doing something good for others through her suffering, which I think gave meaning to what she was going through.
That's what really stands out to me, is her willingness to use all of her talents and expertise to help other pancreatic cancer patients.
She carried with her the lived experience of living with pancreatic cancer. And that, for me as a physician, allowed me to see it from a patient's perspective so closely.
And something that I think will remain part of her legacy is our doctor finder. It was her idea.
Because of Helena, patients all around the country can find a specialist no matter where they live.
Being from somewhere that wasn't one of the coasts, we're flyover country here. And I think she wanted to help with the kinds of things that she dealt with.
And is helping so many people right now who will benefit from what she created for Let's Win.
Despite her life being short, her impact on people living with pancreatic cancer is long.
Over the last couple of months, I was particularly awed by Helene's commitment to Let's Win.
Even when she was so sick, I remember vividly she joining us.
But she wanted to be a part of that meeting, and she was going to be there with me. That was my first meeting. I mean, to do that after getting through treatment, I mean, I just couldn't believe her dedication and her willing to kind of go the distance with people. I think that really tells a lot about what kind of person she is.
Obviously, we've talked a lot about pancreatic cancer and research, but we also talked a lot about her kids, her husband. It was just fun and such a pleasure to have learned from her and to be able to call her a friend.
She was a friend more than just a colleague through Let's Win.
We just connected on so many other levels was what I remember most was how important her family was to her. You know, the love that she clearly had for her husband and daughters.
I hope that Helene is remembered for her caring spirit.
She made this world a much happier place. I'm really, really going to miss her.
The world is going to miss such a beautiful person who deeply and truly cared about everyone she met.
Helena left us way too early. There are many times that I regret not being able to spend more time on the phone with her. We all need to do better spending more time with each other, because ultimately those relationships are the only thing that really matters.
It's not fair that she's not here. I miss her. I know her family misses her even more. You know, her two daughters meant the world to her. Her mom really loved them. And Michael, she put in the work with her friends. She put in the work with her kids. She put in the work with her cancer. She lived as long as she did through her sheer willpower. And I know that when she was first diagnosed, she wasn't done mothering them. She needed to live until she felt like they were going to be okay. And I think she did that.
I think what Helena would want of us at Let's Win is to keep going, keep doing the work. That's what she did, do it all, and that's what we'll do.
Michael?
Oh, wow, what a crowd. Well, thank you all for coming here in person or joining us on Zoom. I also know that many of you have traveled from far away. I want to thank so many of you for doing so many things over the years. You're too many to name. Both sides of our families, including my brother, my many cousins and aunts, for always treating Helena as one of their own. My close friends in Greece for doing the same, and also taking care of her when I was not visiting with her. Special thanks to Emilia. All these trips to College Station can't have been easy. And to Raquel and Hubie for being there, always. It's very hard for me to pick a memory, special memory, from the last 35 years. We met when we were very young, and in many ways we grew up together. So we shared lives, experiences, everything. So instead, I'll try to answer two questions that have been asked a lot. The first one is, how did we meet? I first saw Helena walking down a busy street in Chinatown in Boston in the summer of 1990. I was maybe 50, 60 feet away, but I will never forget it. The way the sun was hitting her hair, the dress she was wearing, it's a light blue dress with a floral pattern, and above all, her smile. I was stunned. I don't know how to say it in words. Imagine a scene from a movie with many people in it. One person is shown in bright color and everybody else is in gray. That's exactly how it felt. Then she disappeared in the crowd. Am I going to see her again? Well, weeks passed, and one day she steps into the same elevator I was in at Tufts. I was in shock again and remained in shock even when she left the elevator and disappeared again. And I mean, what could I do? I mean, was she working there? If so, where? I mean, it was a big building. Yeah, I know, I was hopeless. But you know, like I'm also lucky though, so that luck helped. So a few weeks later, she walks into the same classroom. I was taking a class. I had to retake it because I had failed it the previous year. She was taking for the first time. Wait for this, biochemistry of all things. At that point, you know, I knew I had to do something, no more excuses. So 3 dates later, we were sharing the 5-square-foot apartment. It was great. And 3 months after that, we had a joint bank account. And 4 years later, we were married, just like that. The moral of the story, because I actually see a lot of graduate students here, is a lot of good things happen in graduate school. The second question I'm asked a lot is, how do we make it in the last 6, 7 years? I mean, Helena's illness was a dark cloud, no question about it. But we also had some of our best memories from those years. There were the big ones, kids' graduations, a few of them, and many smaller ones. We traveled, we saw beautiful places, we saw beautiful things, concerts, plays, you name it. We often try to combine a treatment visit to Houston or Austin with something else. So once Helena had tickets for a Mark Knopfler show, and it fell right after a chemo treatment, which meant that she had in Houston, which meant that she had to get out of the hospital with a pump attached to her, which would deliver the medicine for another 2 days. But she was determined; she wasn't going to miss it. So she says, "You drive me straight to the venue." All right. So she had a nice-looking handbag. She stuck the pump in it. We arrived at the gate check, and the attendant insisted that she had to check her bag, which of course would have meant that she had to unplug the whole thing. Yes, James, there were many four-letter words at that point to the attendant and the supervisor. Needless to say, a few minutes later, we're sitting at our seats and we had free tickets for drinks. She couldn't drink. She was on chemo, but I could. It was great. We had a blast. And Helena loved music, as it's obviously clear by now. But she always regretted for not seeing one artist while he was still performing, Tom Petty. So I'd like to think that somewhere now they are sharing a stage, and Tom is getting an earful from Helena about his music or who knows what. And maybe I could whisper in her ear a few lines from a song, that Tom Petty song. Take it easy, baby. You made it last a whole life and more, much more. Thank you.
Let's take a moment to pray as if you are a person who prays to God, and otherwise to spend a moment reflecting on how amazing this woman lived her life and how we can all benefit from that. The Sufi poet Hafiz said, "We have not come here to take prisoners, but to remember and surrender ever more deeply to freedom and joy. We have not come here into this exquisite world to hold ourselves hostage from love." As we leave this place, I think there is a reception. Is that right, Michael? Across the way. And I know the family would love to spend some more time with you. As we leave this place, may we carry with us the love we have shared, the memories that have shaped us, and the gratitude for Helena's life that touched our own. May we go gently, supporting one another, and may the love we feel today continue to find expression in kindness, in courage, and care. I'm going to sing you a song from my tradition. Remember the way of the wind, and breathe and blow. Remember the way of the fire, sparkle and glitter and glow. Remember the way of the water, and ebb and flow. Remember the way of the earth, and grow. Go in peace.
She was an American girl, raised on promises. She couldn't help thinking that there was a little more life somewhere else.